you, Dorothy. On behalf of Peace Church, we very much want to welcome you here. Some of you were here last year and you heard that this was our first year in this building. And we are all hoping that if we get to host this next year, you will be in that building, which is right now just a figment of our imagination out in the grass. But it will be a whole new building. And as Gopi told you, we have just successfully completed our pledge campaign to raise $1 million to get that construction going. So we're now in the process of seeking permits and contractors and all of those terrible things that have to happen. But until that's finished, we are delighted to have you here with us in our place, and really humbled because hosting an interfaith opportunity like this is part of what Peace is all about. This church as a congregation only began 11 years ago. And it began with 11 people sitting around a dining room table saying, we should have a Presbyterian church out here in Lakewood Ranch. And they did the unthinkable. They went to what we call our presbytery, our governing body for this area, and said, we would like a church. And they said, oh, well, it doesn't usually happen that way. And they said, we know, but we want to have our church here. And so they began conversations and began this church with just a handful of people. We are a church looking toward peace, working toward peace, and all of the elements that go into peace, and openness to all people. Gopi said he didn't quite, he thought, measure our standard. Our standard is that you are a human being seeking after a God of peace, whatever name you choose to use. So that's what Peace Church really is about. We now have about 175 members, and then about 100 more people who don't consider themselves members, but consider themselves part of the Peace family and worship and share with us. We have 5 goals. We seek to worship with inspiration. We seek to discipleship to further teach our people with a nurturing spirit rather than a directing spirit. These 5 adjectives are very important to us. Inspiring worship, nurturing discipleship, authentic relationships with one another. So we very much are a church at peace with one another. You won't hear the rankling here that you hear in some churches of people fighting about, I believe this way and your way is wrong. We don't do that here. We say, but we all seek the same thing, even though we go about it differently. And then a compassionate outreach. We seek to serve other people anywhere that we find them, to meet needs, spiritual needs, of course, but also personal human needs, people who are hungry, people who are homeless, people who are hurting in many ways. And so we have compassionate outreach, not just to the people who come inside our building, but to people whom we meet anywhere and everywhere. And finally, a responsive stewardship. And they picked this goal long before we had this beautiful piece of property. And we know that while there is a deed and while our name is on it and while we have the mortgage that we have to pay on it, it is not our property. We are simply caretakers of the property. And that which is beautiful around here of this good world is what we seek to hold and treasure almost as much as we hold and treasure one another who are here. And I want to add one other thing. Last evening, I had the privilege of attending a prayer vigil at the Greater Mumford African Methodist Episcopal Chapel on Martin Luther King Boulevard in Sarasota, where we lit candles and prayed and sang and prayed on behalf of the people of Charleston, South Carolina, both those who lost their lives or were injured, but also for all of the residents, and not just in Charleston, but everywhere, who seek a world of peace, who want to eliminate violence. I'm going to put it right here, but tomorrow it will go on our table with our Christ candle in our worship service. But I think this is also a place of a meeting of peaceful people. And so that's a little piece of who peace is. It is a joy for me to be a part of this church. It is a joy for me to be part of a community that welcomes all and that does not hold to rigid standards. We just seek to be with others who reach out in love and compassion and caring. So we are very pleased to welcome you here.